He said you believe that certain things were revealed, but not like all of the Old Testament.
So are you a Christian yourself, or practicing Christian?
I'm a bad Christian, but I'm a Christian. I grew up Christian. Yeah, my dad's a pastor.
Okay, you're probably the first Christian to tell me I'm a bad Christian. Most Christians don't say that, you know.
What, they don't say the Christian?
No, they don't say I'm a bad Christian.
I'm a bad Christian because I can't say I'm a good Christian because obviously God's listened to everything I'm saying.
Sure.
So I can't say I'm a good Christian. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, most Christians are living their life thinking that Jesus died for their sins. So why does it matter if you're a bad or a good Christian?
He died for my sins, but obviously I've got to respect that, don't I? I can't not respect it, can I?
Sure, but you're a deficient human being. Everyone would sin. Nobody doesn't sin. You're not a perfect person, basically.
Yeah, we're born with sin. Everyone's born with sin.
Yeah,
so the time you can be relieved of sin is through Jesus.
Yeah, so if you're not perfect, that means you will sin then.
If I'm not perfect, I will sin, yes, but obviously you got to try your best to be like Jesus.
Sure. So, but why would they do that? That's what I'm trying to understand. If I believe in Jesus, I'm just trying to understand from a Christian perspective, and I'll answer your question, by the way, about the Old Testament. But I'm saying if I'm a Christian right now, and I believe it's a fact that Jesus died for people's sin in the Christian belief, then he died for all my sins, past and present and future, right? He didn't only die for the past sins, but the future sins as well, right?
Everyone's sins.
Yes. So if he died for all the sins of mankind, then why does it hurt if I fall? I'm a weak human being if I sin. So what? He died for it.
I could give you an atheist argument as well. I can say that if anything bad happens, how is God real if bad things happen? I mean, you can give atheist arguments like this as well.
No, but the atheist arguments are not going to work. Yeah, I can answer that from an Islam point of view, for example. I can give an answer for that.
You can say like, why do people have bad teeth if dentists are real?
No, but
say the same thing.
It's kind of, you're saying in a way that we shouldn't ask rational questions, but we need to. Because so if we live our life, for example, if you look at a Hindu, for example, and they worship a cow and they drink their piss or whatever, you're not going to do that, are you?
I'm not sure. Listen, I work for a few Hindus. I do building and stuff. I'm a salesman.
Sure.
But I work for a few of them. Well, I'm not sure what they believe. They just believe that all the gods are the right one? Or?
No, they believe in something called pantheism, which means that God is in everything, and God is in the cows. So the cows are God in a sense.
Cows?
Because cows. The cow, you know.
Cow, moo.
Yeah, the cow. Yeah. So they believe everything is God, right?
I was
including
talking
cows.
to one guy. He tried putting it like the Christian, I assume Muslims believe in the Old Testament God. That's what I've always assumed.
So your question about the Old Testament, let me answer it. So we believe in Moses, we believe in Jesus, we believe in Abraham, we believe in
That's why I was asking him. I was asking him, do you believe in the Old Testament? So I saw an interesting thing about obviously you believe in Adam.
Yeah, but
Cain and all those. I was thinking, have you heard what their names mean all the way down to Noah?
Yeah, we don't say we believe in the Old Testament. That's what I'm trying to highlight to you. I'm saying we believe in the prophets of God.
You believe in certain parts of it, though.
You believe in the previous prophets, but we say that what was revealed to those previous prophets is not found today in its original form. So what you have today, for example, what you refer to as the Old Testament, the oldest you have is 2,000 years after Moses, written by unknown people. We don't know that this is actually what Moses did, or what he said, or what any of these prophets did. So what I'm trying to highlight to you is we cannot rely on it 100% to be historically accurate. It can have correct information, it can have false information. For example, when it says that Moses said to his people, "Hear, O Israel, our Lord God is one God," we say we don't have a problem with that. God is one, right? We say that's a true statement. But we cannot say we trust that what is written in what you call today the Old Testament to be historically reliable. We cannot say that.
And how do you trust in the Quran?
We know that the Quran is historically reliable because we know that the Quran is carbon dated to the time of the Prophet. So we have manuscripts.
How do you have proof of it? The same way you could say
I'm telling you right now.
Pontius Pilate wrote about Jesus and wrote about the execution and all this kind of.
No. I'm telling you the difference right now. The difference is, first we have two ways of preservation of the Quran, right? Two ways of preserving the Quran. The first way is the memorization of the Quran. We memorize the whole book from beginning to end. No other nation does that. And this is from the time of the Prophet until today. Ramadan just passed. If you went to the mosque, he would recite the whole Quran in 30 nights from memory. No books, nothing. If you throw all the books in the sea, we can recreate it in a minute. There's millions of memorizers of the Quran.
The same thing can be said for the Bible in the New Testament.
Who memorizes the Bible?
Of course, a lot of people. Millions.
No, give me one person.
Millions of people. I can't name me, but millions of people go. You can. I can say what if everybody stopped memorizing the Quran and everybody started memorizing what's the one the Jews follow? The Torah.
That's the Old Testament.
If everyone memorized the Torah,
sure.
the Torah says Jesus is burning in shit. Apparently, they say.
Not the Torah, but I know it's Talmud. Yes.
If everyone memorizes that and no one memorizes the Bible, no one memorizes Quran, does that mean that's automatically true? You can't say that.
It's not about
just because they memorized it.
No, I think you're confusing things here. There's a difference between making an argument for what is false and true true and making an argument for whether a historical document is reliable from the source or not. These are two separate arguments. So you're conflating the two. I'm not saying Islam is true because the Quran is the same that it was at the time of the Prophet. I'm not making that argument.
You've said people memorize the Quran from the Ramadan. Are you saying who memorized the Bible?
Sure.
Said, obviously, millions of people memorize the Bible.
That's not true, by the way.
Of course, everybody remembers the Bible.
That's not true.
The Bible's it's the most popular book in the world.
If you want to research,
it's the most popular book in the world, number one.
No,
the Quran is number two.
I'm not talking about popularity, my friend. It's not a popularity contest.
Okay, but you can say that more people memorize this, and not as many people memorize this.
That's also not true. Nobody memorizes the Bible.
Everyone memorizes the Quran. Nobody memorizes the Bible.
I didn't say everyone.
You can't just say that.
I don't think you're arguing rationally. If you're arguing emotionally, I cannot talk to you.
I'm not arguing emotionally. You've said.
Okay, so tell me who memorizes the Bible. Give me an example.
You've said everybody memorizes the Quran, and nobody memorizes the Bible.
Yes, now.
That's like me saying if everybody memorizes the Talmud.
Do you know what memorizing means?
I don't. Memorize means you can recite it word for word from begin to end.
Yeah,
yes.
Off memory. Do you know how big the Bible is? Old and New Testament?
It's like 1,200 pages.
Okay, so you think there is you know the Quran is like third the size of the Bible.
Sorry?
And you know the Quran is third the size of the Bible. And do you know the Quran has a melodic rhythm that allows you to memorize it? Now you're trying to compare that with a book that is 3 times as big that talks about everything under the sun.
What does that have to do?
My point is that
the Bible was 1,000,000 pages long.
My point.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
Sure. If you try to listen rather than respond.
I'm listening.
No, I don't think you are because
I am listening.
Okay, but you're not letting me speak. So how are you listening?
I'm listening.
The person who's listening allows the other person to speak, right?
Yeah, I'm listening.
So okay, you made the claim. Oh, this is what I'm going to do right now. I'm not going to do anything. I'm saying you made the claim. There are people who memorize the Bible. Produce your proof. Bring me even one person online. Search Google. Find me one person that memorizes the Bible from beginning to end. Because that's a lie.
It's a silly argument though, because I can tell someone who's memorized the Scientology book from beginning to end. That doesn't mean nothing. I can make a book tomorrow and he can memorize it. It doesn't mean nothing.
It's not an argument. It's me proving that you're making a claim without evidence, and it's a lie. I don't lie. I didn't say there are people who memorize something they don't memorize it. You made the claim that there are people who memorize the Bible from beginning to end. Okay. So provide your evidence. It's not about the argument.
Provide your evidence if you memorize anything. But
right now, do you want me to show you videos of people who memorize the Quran from beginning to end?
What does memorize mean though? Like anybody, I can get hurt to memorize it. It doesn't mean nothing.
Okay. So let's now.
Memorizing doesn't mean anything about.
Let's first let's first admit that you don't have people who memorize the Bible, and then I can tell you what's the argument I'm making with the memorization of the Quran.
Yeah. Carry on.
No, I'll talk when you are focusing with me, because you're not focusing with me.
Oh, I'm scrolling. No, carry on.
No, I said to you.
You've talked about memorization. I'm saying this is no proof of anything, though. I can memorize anything.
It is proof of preservation. Do you know what preservation is?
I know what preservation means.
What does it mean?
Hello? I'm saying preservation.
What does preservation mean?
Preservation means basically keeping something alive. Basically keeping the word of whatever this is alive. Keeping it in memories, keeping everybody's memory.
No. Preservation means keeping something intact in its original form. That's the definition of preservation.
The same thing of what I just said.
No, you said keeping it alive.
Okay, but more or less.
Sure. So I'm trying to be accurate with my words here.
We both agree though. It's more or less what I just said.
No, what we both
tried a correction for no reason.
No, what we both agree on is that you're not understanding the point I'm making.
I do understand what you mean. You're saying, brother, you just said because more people memorize the Quran.
I didn't say that.
Apparently more people memorize.
That's not true. I didn't say that, by the way.
And my first question was, do you believe in the Old Testament? You didn't fully answer it.
I answered you. I told you that.
You said certain parts. What does that mean?
I said to you. You see, you're not looking for an answer. You're looking for an argument.
I'm not looking for an argument, brother. I'm definitely not looking for an argument.
Okay, so if I speak, don't interrupt me, and then you'll get an answer for what you asked. I already asked you. You asked me about the Old Testament. I answered you. I told you the Old Testament is not historically reliable. Therefore, it can contain true and false information. Our criteria of what is true and false is based on that which agrees with the revelation of God, i.e. the Quran. That is our position. Now, the second thing to answer what you're saying, because you're not understanding, I didn't say more people memorize the Quran, therefore the Quran is preserved.
That's a weird argument, though.
I didn't say that. This is what you're misunderstanding.
So what did you say?
So I'm trying to say it now when you allow me to speak, right? I said the Quran has been memorized from the time of the Prophet until today, which is a method of preservation. If something, an example, to make it closer to your mind, think of the alphabet, for example. Alphabet memorized by millions of people, passed down by generation one by generation.
So you mean it because different translations? Is that what you're talking about?
No. Which means
King James Bible and
wait, listen to understand. Sometimes I think I'm not speaking English. You're the English speaking person here. It's not my first language, bro.
understand. I think I understand what point you're trying to make. But
the point I'm making is that the millions of people memorizing the Quran is a method of preserving it from the time of the Prophet until today. Is the argument I'm making. So I'm making the point that you asked me, how do you know the Quran is preserved? So I'm giving you the methods of how we know the Quran is preserved.
The Bible's preserved as well, so it's a silly argument.
It's not. How is it preserved?
How isn't it?
I'm telling you.
How isn't it?
The oldest manuscript you have of the Bible, the New Testament, is 400 years after Jesus. The Old Testament is 2,000 years after, written by.
How many years after the Quran?
Can you let me finish my answer? Okay, so don't interrupt and have some respect, because I have respect for you. I'm allowed to speak.
I have respect for you, but I'm talking to you right now.
No, you interrupt me when I speak. That's not respect.
I'm trying to respond to what you're saying, but because you make a claim, make a claim, and then you move past it.
You
like
speak.
It's true.
No. You speak, and when you're done, I'll respond to you. Go ahead.
Okay, carry on.
What do you want to say?
I just asked you what I want to say.
Okay, say it again. What do you want to say?
Where was we going? Where was you? You've talked.
So I'll speak, but you will then interrupt me, right? Because you're done.
Okay, but stay at one. I stay at one point.
No, I can speak the way I want to.
But you answer one point, and then you go to the next.
No, I don't need to speak.
You answer one point, you go to the next.
I don't tell you to. No. Your questions were about the Old Testament and the preservation.
My first question was about the Old Testament.
And I responded to it.
If Muslims believe the Old Testament, I know a lot of Muslims. I have a lot of Muslim friends. I'm saying if you guys believe the Old Testament, and then you started talking about preservation and saying that.
I answered that question in the beginning.
You said
2 times.
You said Muslims can recite the Quran, and Christians can't.
It seems like you didn't like hearing that, and it hurt your feelings, and why you keep repeating it. Like, yes, Muslims do memorize. Yes.
I'm just saying it's invalid.
Nothing is invalid about that.
She there can recite crime and punishment. You know what I mean? It's
and then what does that prove?
It doesn't prove anything. Exactly. This is my point.
But that's not the argument I made.
So what argument did you make?
I'm not going to make it again because you're not listening.
You're saying they can recite it. It's been preserved. Are you talking about the different translations?
I'm not talking about translation.
So what are you talking about then?
Again, okay, I'll repeat it now. Don't interrupt me. Listen, actually, because
I am listening.
No.
You change points.
If you're listening, you'd have already got the answer because I gave it multiple times. Now I'm going to say this very slowly, but try to actually understand. And as I said to you, English is supposed to be your first language, so you should understand what I'm saying.
Don't talk down like that.
No.
Have a bit of respect.
No. Okay, so you have respect and don't interrupt.
Okay, I know. But
let's have respect equally then.
Don't talk like that.
No, I'm not talking smack. I'm making a point.
You are talking smart.
I'll tell you the point I'm making.
Okay, carry on.
Is that you're supposed to understand what I'm saying because it's your own language, and not keep asking the question multiple times.
People can recite the Quran because there's something about last Ramadan, but people can't recite the Bible the same way. You said that.
Okay, that's a part of what I said.
More or less, that's what you said.
No,
that's a simplified version, but that's what you said.
No, of course, but if it's a simplified version, it's a misrepresentation of what I said. You need to actually understand the argument I'm making. Okay, I'll make it for the last time. You asked me about the Old. This is how the whole discussion went. You asked me about the Old Testament. I responded to you, but it's not historically reliable. It can have truth and falsehood, and we believe in certain parts. So I give an example. Or there's one God because that agrees with the revelation of God. So what agrees with the Quran, i.e. the revelation of God, we accept in the Old Testament. I already gave this answer 3 times now. So the second part of it is I said to you, the Bible is not historically reliable. So you said, how do you know the Quran is historically reliable? That was your question. Then I said to you, okay, here is how we know. There's 2 methods of. I didn't even get to the second method. But there is 2 methods of preservation of the Quran. Preservation, historical preservation, a way of determining the book I have in my hand today is the same that was there at the time of the Prophet, which you do not have when it comes to the Bible. And I was giving you the comparison there. So then I told you one method of preservation was the memorization of the Quran. The people memorized it from the time of the Prophet until today. There's a tradition in Ramadan that we recite the whole Quran from beginning to end. That's what I was mentioning. So I said that life tradition you could go and see with your own eyes to see the demonstration of the memorization of the full book. Then you said, oh, but other people memorize the Bible. I said, okay, give me an example, and that's a lie. It's not true. Since you give me an example of one person online, it should be a person, one person at least, anywhere. Can you provide now? Not celebrities. I'm saying any human being.
This is why I talked about the translations. I said, are you talking about the translations? Are you talking about the different translations?
Tissue. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No.
I'm just taking a tissue from it. Yeah.
I was talking about because. Are you saying that because there's different translations?
Not about the translation. I'm talking about the original. I'm not talking about translations at all.
It's the same. It's a slight translation. It's nothing. It means nothing. You can go.
Slight translation. What? Why are you talking about translations? I'm not talking about.
That's what you're on about. You're on about.
That's a straw man. I didn't talk about that.
You can say it's a straw man. You're on about preserving it.
This is a straw man. I'm not talking about translations.
You've got to make slight translations to translate it into different languages. Obviously, the German Bible is going to be slightly different from the English one.
I'm not talking about translations, my friend. I don't know why you're talking about that.
You're talking about preserving it. as if the New Testament from that back when it was made is different from how it is now.
It is.
It's the exact same. How is it different? Where's your proof of that?
You don't have the original.
Where? How do you know this?
I'm telling you. Do you know?
You said you preserve it.
Do you want me to tell you now?
Okay, I've heard you.
I hope you can listen. You listened the first time, and I appreciated that.
Listened.
No, you did. I said I was just saying you listen. You see, and why are you so excited? Allow me to speak.
I'm not excited. I'm calm.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Maybe this is how you are normally. It's okay. Because I'm speaking and you speak.
I don't argue.
No. I mean, when I speak, you speak in the same time.
I know, but I feel like you're trying to make like gotchas. You know what I mean? You're trying to make like.
No. It's not about that. It's about that I don't appreciate when I'm speaking and someone else isn't speaking at the same time.
I know.
Sure.
But I'm saying I'm trying to understand what you mean. You're talking about.
I'll answer you now.
Okay, carry on.
Sure. I'll tell you what I mean. The Bible, I told you why it's not historical. I'll repeat now what I said. It's not preserved because the earliest manuscripts you have of it, you don't have anything from time of Jesus, nothing from the first century, nothing. Second century, you barely have something called P52, this big. I know the names of the manuscripts. I'll tell you right now. P52 is this as big as this. Part of John, which is irrelevant, have no useful information. The earliest full manuscript of the Bible is called the Codex Sinaiticus. It's nearly from the 4th century, written by unknown people. The one after it is called the Codex Vaticanus. The Old Testament, the earliest written you have is called the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's 2,000 years separate from Moses. So when I make an argument and I tell you that these things are not historically reliable, that's a fact because you can carbon date a manuscript and know how far back it dates. So it's a fact historically that you don't have the originals of the Bible, therefore you cannot make that claim. On the other hand, I said we have two ways which we know the Quran is preserved because that was your question. We have carbon dated manuscript from the 1st century of the Quran, Sana'a manuscript, top copy manuscript. We have the Birmingham parchment. You can go see with your own eyes right now in Birmingham Museum, which is from the life of the Prophet himself. So, on the other hand, we can say, okay, this book is historically preserved. Why is that important? You can ask that question. Why is that important? Why does it matter if it's preserved? So we can know what God said and what God didn't say. If a book is changed, then I don't know what is from God and what men has inserted in there, their own opinions, their own ideas, what they changed and what God said. I cannot trust a book that I do not know is preserved from the source. So that's the argument I've been making from the beginning.
I know, but what I'm saying is that the Quran obviously has come years after the New Testament. Never mind the Old Testament. The Quran's come years after the New Testament.
Sure.
I'm going to believe it's come first. I can't believe that a revelation apparently what's been made to someone else.
Sure. I respond to that.
But I'm saying what my point is,
but that's not a point, by the way.
The whole reason I come over here, I was just wondering if Muslims believe in the Old Testament. And you haven't really fully answered that. You said you believed in certain parts of it, but you don't.
No. I said since it's changed, we cannot trust what it says.
So you don't trust none of it. You don't believe in Moses.
No, it's not none of it. I told you the criteria was what agrees with the Quran. The Quran mentions Adam and Eve. It mentions Moses. It mentions Noah. So we believe in these parts because they agree with the revelation.
Is what you believe in.
Everything that is revealed in the Quran that would correlate in the Old Testament, we would believe in that. Anything that doesn't correlate or it's not against or with, we can be skeptical about.
Everything you believe, everything that was correlated into the Quran is what you believe.
Yes.
But not half the Old Testament's.
So whatever contradicts, we don't believe.
So half the Old Testament's in there. Noah's in there. Elijah's in there.
The prophets
Adam's
of God. Prophets of God are mentioned in the Quran,
so
but it's not the same stories.
Elijah,
but it's not. There are differences. Yes, but there are differences in the stories of Moses and differences of stories of Adam and all of that. Things which we believe are changed. The Quran is coming to correct them. So yes, there was a need for the Quran to mention the stories again. So you can first, for example, you have prophets of God sleeping with their daughters in the Old Testament. You have prophets of God who are cheating on their wives and killing the person adultery. You have worshipping other than God. In the Quran, you don't have that. Allah is purifying.
You do have a lot of suspect things in the Quran also.
No, I'm not trying. I'm not trying to take a low blow here.
Okay,
let me explain to you what I'm saying.
It's a bit like when people make the argument of Rebecca saying that she's studying. You can say the same thing about.
I'm not making the argument, by the way.
You know what I mean?
No, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
You just made about cheating on the wives and whatnot.
No, it's not about the wives. The argument I'm making is this: is that prophets of God are not going to do any of these things. We believe in the same prophets, and Allah in the Quran purifies them from these acts. So the argument I'm making is not how bad the act or not. We're saying the prophets didn't do any of these things. We're saying they're pure of these allegations. That's what I'm telling you. In the book is changed. We don't believe these parts that attribute these things to prophets because we know prophets of God will not do that. You wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. So a prophet of God wouldn't do that.
Do you agree to disagree?
Well, if we're open-minded, we will, but we'll just end it here.
I'm open-minded, but when it comes to
no, it's okay.
بشركم اليوم سرورا